steamed up just a moment. Before I just explain what the book is about, I just want to thank Angel again for putting on this evening, for publishing our books. And I have to say, every time I attend one of these events and I listen to the other writers that Angel has gathered around her, I always end up feeling like this is a party that I don't quite understand why I've been invited to, because the calibre of Dexys Press's authors is really astonishing. And I can personally guarantee that any book you pick up from that table out there, with the possible exception of mine, you will love, because they are wonderful. So what I have for you is, this is a novella about a middle-aged man wondering where his life has gone, and prompted by the death of his father to look back over his past relationships, examine his mistakes, and own up to all the horrible things that he has done in his life, particularly pertaining to his romantic relationships. It is a work of fiction. I should stress that everything in here is products of the author's imagination, or are used in a fictitious manner. I'll just make that clear before we start. I didn't say a word to my first girlfriend for the entire week that we went out. I was in high school now, double figures age-wise, no wiser though, no more mature, just older. Her best friend was dating my best friend Tom, so I don't know to this day, even with my rational hat on, how much she actually liked me, and how much her asking me out was one of those practical arrangements whereby a girl gets to spend more time with her boyfriend if her best friend is going out with his. But in any event, I was asked, and I, encouraged by Tom, said yes, and then said nothing else for a week, after which time I was informed via Tom's girlfriend that her best friend no longer wanted to be my girlfriend, and so wasn't. This silence, I should say, was not out of any kind of indifference or dislike. No, it was pure fear. I had no idea what you said to girls, still don't, but back then I really didn't. I could look at girls, of course, that part was easy. But what do you say? What are appropriate words to... No, it's not about what are the appropriate words, it's more fundamental. It's what do you talk about? Small talk, casual conversation can be excruciating for me in any situation, mind you. It doesn't have to be with a woman with whom I am or want to be in romantic entanglement with. The man sitting next to me on a bus is a terrifying enough conversational prospect, but factor in the romantic angle as well and I'm dead in the water. To this day, I'd swear if it wasn't for alcohol, I'd still be a virgin. So Lisa didn't get a single word from me. My second girlfriend, Natasha, was no luckier. She put up with the silent treatment for 3 fewer days than Lisa had, but the relationship and the ending played out the same. I studiously avoided her until I was unceremoniously told by a friend of hers that I had no further need to. You were different though, Lenny. You I could talk to. This would have been the following year, after my 2 abortive attempts at having a girlfriend. Our high school had 2 main intakes of pupils due to being a Catholic school with a large catchment area. 3 classes in the first year, made up of children from primary schools around the county. Groups of 4 or 5 country children from each tiny village school, suddenly thrown into a chaotic vortex of noise and bigger kids. This swelled to 6 classes in the second year as those children who were city-based and so had had a middle school experience joined en masse. I was a primary schooler, awkward and nervous. You came to high school brimming with confidence, part of that relatively huge intake of middle schoolers who all, it seemed to us, knew each other. For some reason, although we had forms, that group of children who came under one teacher for morning registration, we were never taught in those groups. There were those classes we had that were hierarchic, like maths and French, where we were divided by ability. Then for the humanities, there was another arrangement, arbitrary, of children brought together. It was in this group that we found each other. I had, by this point, made somewhat of a switch. At some unspecified moment in time, I had found my voice with girls, just as I had lost it with boys. I think as interest in sport got more serious, more focused on competition, my interest in it, never enormous, had withered and died on the vine. As anyone can tell you, not liking football renders you an outsider in high school terms. And so, as long as there wasn't the slightest whiff of romance, I suddenly started to gravitate to girls for company. Specific ones, of course, a handful that I felt comfortable with and that felt comfortable with me. Those that didn't see anything in me other than friendship. I was not at ease in just any old company, not by any stretch. You, as I say, were different. You seemed to take to me with a mixture of affection and amusement. We were so very different, the naive country boy and the streetwise tough city girl. Not that the city in question was an urban jungle by any means, but there was nevertheless a worldliness in you that was alien, other to me. I was tall and at that age still skinny. You were short and skinny as well. Sharp features exaggerated by your tight ponytail, which on rare occasion you forewent to let your mass of frizzy hair encircle your head like a wedding veil. I particularly remember your hands, all scabs and strong, bony fingers like talons. You smoked, as did I, but you also smoked spliffs. You told me once you'd sucked a guy off, some guy you mentioned from time to time. I seethed internally with jealousy. Not that I wanted you to suck me off so much as I even understood what that entailed, and the thought terrified me. No, my desires were still innocent, but there was a connection between the two of you, I assumed, which I envied. I would often sit in class with you and your friends, one boy and 3 girls on our table of 4, to be near you, laugh with you, seeking approval from your piercing eyes. Later, when we reached the age where we were allowed to venture out into the city on our lunch breaks, we would sometimes both be part of a larger group in a cafe, sharing glances. There was a frisson at times, or so I thought. We had one date, do you remember? One non-eventful date. I braved the phone call to your home. Not seeing your face was the only way I could handle the rejection, but unexpectedly, you said yes. We arranged to meet outside the smallest cinema in town, the one that showed the movies the other cinemas had stopped showing 6 months ago, to see Ghost. Only it seems that I either didn't know how to read newspapers or the ad just presumed people knew cinemas weren't open on a Sunday. When you showed up, I forlornly explained to you that the cinema was closed and that I had no plan B. We walked around town for a while aimlessly. Back then, cinemas weren't the only thing closed on a Sunday. Everything was, except pubs. I had only ever been to pubs with my parents for meals, but as I say, yours was a worldliness that was streets apart from my sheltered upbringing. We ended up playing pool in a pub that you told me you often went to, and we both drank Coke. And after a few games of pool, we left, and after walking a short way down the street, said goodbye. We didn't kiss. We didn't even hold hands. There was no second date. The frisson remained though. I remember a conversation we had once where you said that you liked me, in that particularly euphemistic way that teenagers say it, when liking someone stands in for something deeper. Anyway, you said you liked me or had liked me, but I had no idea what to do with that information, how to process it or how to act on it. It hung between us, undealt with. The biggest barrier to my making anything happen with you was fear. For once, not fear of you, although you certainly did scare me. No, the fear that held me back was fear of judgment. That the boys and girls who laughed at me for not having a girlfriend would then laugh at me for having one. Would laugh at me if I went out with you. Why I should care about what they thought, I can't imagine now. I suppose, once I was in a particular state, even if it wasn't pleasant, it was safer to stay in that state than to change it, to run the risk of ending up somewhere worse. They might have mocked me less, but they also might have mocked me more. Either way, is that any reason not to have taken that leap and been with you? For I am sure in my teenage way that I loved you. There was as well that perpetual fear, the one that said that I was misinterpreting everything, every look, every smile, every shared moment. That conversation where you admitted to liking me, even that I doubted my interpretation of, as absurd as doubt was in the context. What if I had it all wrong and you never thought of me that way, even though you had the one time I asked you agreed to go out with me? You didn't stay at school for sixth form. I don't even know if you went to college or left education there and then. There was no internet, no ready way to track the whereabouts of your peers. By the time there was, you were a phantom, lost completely to the past. The last thing I ever heard of you, a friend told me he'd run into you at the train station. He said you looked rough, substantiating rumours that had circulated that after school you'd become addicted to heroin. I'm ashamed to say, not that I believed it, but that I could believe it. You had done some fairly adult things at a fairly young age, so it didn't seem far-fetched, beyond the inherent absurdity in the idea that a normal person in my real life could be a heroin addict. That said, the friend in question tended to be full of shit, so who knows. To this day, I've never seen Ghost.